All right, so let's start that over. Good afternoon. Welcome to our Contract Connection webinar series, where we are committed to bring you conversations designed to enhance, grow, and scale your business. My name is Dr. Makiba Butler, and I am the Deputy Director of the Office of Contract Compliance's Education, Outreach, and Strategic Engagement Division. Today, I am extremely excited to speak with Harvind Singh. Harvind is the president of Singh and Associates, an engineering firm that designs and develops various types of public infrastructure. We're going to get into that a little bit more as we begin the conversation. But prior to beginning this conversation, I just want to welcome everyone here. Thank you so very much for being here. Thank you so very much for spending time with us today in the Office of Contract Compliance. Let me make sure all of these individuals who are coming in get in. So a couple of housekeeping. Hold on 1 second, you all. All right, so a couple, what is going on with my screen? All right, so a couple of housekeeping requests. Please make sure that you leave your microphone on mute. We are recording, and this recording is going to be housed on our office YouTube channel. So I want to make sure that as much noise as possible is limited. The second thing is, if you have any questions, please do pop the questions in the chat. I have one of our staff members on this call, and she is going to keep track of any questions that have been placed in the chat so that Harvind or myself can answer them as we are going through. So we're going to try to go ahead and get through the interview, the conversation that we're going to, I like to call this a conversation more than an interview. So we're going to have a nice little intimate conversation. And then we'll get to some of the questions toward the end. If we are unable to get to all of the questions, please feel free to send an email. I'll put the email down to the Office of Contract Compliance Outreach in the chat, and you can send those questions, and I'll definitely make sure I get those questions to Harvind, and she will provide, you know, an answer, or someone from her staff will be able to answer as best as possible. So we'll definitely try to do this. But Harvind, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Makiba. I'm excited to have this conversation with you and see that so many people are excited to learn what to do once you're certified.
Yes. All right, so we're going to get started. We have a few questions here. We put together a lot of questions to talk about, so we'll see. We only have about 30 minutes to talk, so we're going to see how we're able to get through this. So Harvind, tell us a little bit about Singh and Associates and how long the company has been certified with Cook County, and then feel free to share any other certifications that you have or how this particular journey came all about.
Sure, no problem at all. So Singh and Associates has been in business for 30 years. And I started working with Singh 20 years ago. We are a certified disadvantaged business enterprise, women-owned business enterprise, as well as a minority-owned business enterprise. Our certification is through Cook County. And we don't provide widgets, we provide professional services. So we are a design engineering firm doing what design engineering firms do, which is public infrastructure. And that mostly means roads, highways, bridges. And our major clients include the Cook County Department of Highways, the Chicago Department of Transportation, and the Illinois Department of Transportation. Now, those agencies utilize the certifications because federal monies are used to build roads and bridges. So therefore, there are goals on those projects. We have been certified for more than 20 years. And originally when we started, it was really about getting our foot in the door, because start a new business, getting that entry is really what the certification helps you do so you can build relationships. So these certifications that we have been part of our growth process and part of what we've used to strategize our growth process.
Okay, so one of the things that I am going to ask you, because, and I'm pretty sure that this is something that people think about, they might not all the time ask, but I'm going to ask because that's what I do. So how did you get into this type of an industry? Like, how did you get into this engineering industry, and public infrastructure, roads and highways and all that kind of stuff? How did you get into this?
So it's a combination of, luck and family. So my father is a civil engineer and he started the firm back in the day. And my mom said to me, you're out there putzing around trying to find a job. Your dad has this business and needs some help. So go be a good daughter and work for your dad. So that's how I got into it. 20 plus years later, I own it. My dad is retired and I bought the firm from him in 2019. And we have been focusing on growth and, taken what his image was for what Singh & Associates was going to be, from going beyond civil engineering and including mechanical, electrical, plumbing for major transit facilities, including airports, CTA, and Metra, adding that to our service pool and doing a lot of interesting new things in electrical engineering along the roadway, such as intelligent transportation systems and things of that nature. So basically, I grew up in it. I learned from the best, somebody who was very committed. And when you're a civil engineer, really, you want to design bridges and roadways, and those are publicly funded. So that's how I got in here, and we've maintained that vision. We are not we do hardcore design. We're not doing ancillary services. We vision ourselves as being able to compete with the larger or longer lived firms that are out there, and we just keep plugging along. So it was a my mom told me to kind of a story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. So that what you just said kind of leads into some questions that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But you said how you are able to, because of the foundation that your father put in place and kind of how the company has grown over the years, you all are in a position to compete against some of those other larger companies. So you saying that would kind of imply to me that, because there are some vendors who think that they have to be like super large, they have to be super big to be able to play, in this space of contracting at the local level. But would you say, and I know this isn't one of our questions, we're going to get into the next question, but would you say that that is a fallacy, or is that the truth? Like, do they need to be a big company, or do they, what does that look like for them?
Absolutely not. You don't need to be a big company. You need to be good at what you do and what you provide. We're not a big company. We're a small business. We're only, okay, maybe some people think this is big, but in the engineering space of 50 people isn't really that big, considering we have 3 distinct service areas. I don't think it's, I think it's a matter of perspective. I think that if you have a vision and dream for what it is that you're bringing to the marketplace, you go full force with that, and you find the places that you provide something unique and you put in the work, and your size will not matter. If you are good at what you do, you believe in what you do, and you're persistent, you will have success. So we didn't overnight get to 50 people, right? I just finished telling you guys that we are 30 years old. I mean, it used to be my father, then my father and one other person, then my father and 2 other people. Then I came on board and we were 7 people, and it takes time and it takes perseverance. So, and we didn't become a prime overnight. We had to prove ourselves. We had to do a lot of asking. We had to, even though you're certified, it doesn't mean you're going to get work, right? You have to prove you can perform the work. And how are you going to do that? And what are you bringing? And the companies that you're going to pursue to work with have high expectations. So, you have to just be really consistent, and you have to have a lot of patience. You have to have a lot of patience. Everything that's good takes time. And if you can have that patience and slowly build your business, you will get there. But working in the public sector is not the same as working in the private sector. The process is different. You do have a unique advantage because you get a certification, which does not mean you get work. Having a certification doesn't mean you get a contract. You still have to work towards getting that contract. It gives you access that normally you probably wouldn't have in the private sector to meet actual buyers and meet people and understand what those people are looking for, which is the unique opportunity that certification gets you. So, you know, a lot of patience. Size is not the issue at all. It's quality of work.
I'm glad you stated that. I'm glad that you said you have to be good at what you do. So you all started as a subcontractor. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience, like types of contracts, the process that you had? You don't have to get into the weeds or anything like that, but you know, the process that you had to go through to get consistent sub opportunities prior to scaling to where you are now.
So it's difficult. You know, I'm getting a little notice here that my connection is stable, but I'm hoping that it's going to be fine. So when you're starting out in urban pavement and you want to work with, that you have an interest as well, right? And it is a lot of effort. You have to consistently call, you have to have good materials and a sales pitch to tell people what you're bringing to their team. And we're in design services, which is very different, you know, depending what service you're in, right? So since we do qualifications-based selection, we're not providing a bid or a fee for our services. Whereas if you're a contractor, it's different. If you're selling a product, it's different. We sell services that are you know, that have to be selected based on qualifications. So you can't even go in there with the lowest price, right? You have to go in there and make a relationship. And then you get a really, really tiny part, right? Maybe it's just $5,000 worth of work. Maybe it's $10,000. And it's okay, because that's about building your relationship with that prime contractor who's going to help you build a portfolio with Cook County, right? You can't walk in the door and expect Cook County to give you like $30 million. They've never worked with you before, right? Any agency is going to want to see you've built a track record. If you've been able to keep these larger firms engaged and they continue to use you because you're providing them whatever that 1 or 2% of services is, consistently with good staff and good quality, then when there's another opportunity, they'll reach out to you again. But in the size where you're at when you're subbing mostly, and even where we are now, you tend to be reactionary in pursuing opportunities. So for example, some of these larger companies have been reading the buying plans and knew 10 years ago, you know, the 43rd Street Bridge was going to come out. Okay. I didn't know it was going to come out until it hit the street. Right. So you have to be able to go ahead and, you know, keep yourself informed. People aren't going to call you back because they don't know you, and you can't be upset. You've got to just call them back and leave another message. You've got to find ways to reach them. Maybe you need to go to events where they might be, outreach events like the one Cook County had not too many months ago. That's where you meet your potential prime clients, as well as you're showing to them that you're making relationships with the agency. So it is a matter of going out there and selling your business and your commitment to do a good job. And it is not overnight success. You know, somebody in the chat is saying, I'm certified with the city of Chicago. I can't get anyone to tell me how to expand the certification. Well, I'll tell you why. Because the city of Chicago, if you are already certified as a W or M or whatever, The city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, other than CMS and Cook County, are the only ones that give that certification. So, and then Cook County and the city of Chicago have reciprocity. So if you're certified with one, the other recognizes it. So you don't need to expand. You have everything you need. Now you're asking for US nationally. It's different by state, but depending on which certification, if you want to be a disadvantaged business enterprise, there's 5 agencies that you can go through, but for the WBE, you can only get it through the city of Chicago, Cook County, and then statewide CMS has a process as well. That's all you need. It's a matter of whether or not the agency you're pursuing has goals on their contracts for a WBE. And the city of Chicago definitely has goals, and so does Cook County. So sorry,
I love that. No, that's
I got
okay.
off track there.
No,
I
that's
have my
okay.
chat
That's
open.
okay. That's okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And this is the kind of conversation that we're having, right? We want to be able, we do have a couple of my staff in there from certification. So if there's any certification questions, they'll be able to just pop in a little bit of an answer for whoever, but thank you for that, because that's very important that they understand. Another thing that I like that you said, Harvin, was everything is about relationship, number one. And number two, that people actually get these certifications and they think they want to, like, they think that they want to be able to get a $50,000 contract or $100,000 contract. And I like what you said when you said, if somebody, you know, after building that relationship or somebody reaches out to you, you actually able to get your foot in the door for a little piece of a contract that equals 5,000, 10,000, or 15,000. That's good. That's actually a good thing, because that does allow your relationship building process to start taking flight. And then as you build that relationship with those companies as a reliable subcontractor, a subcontractor who, like you said earlier, knows what they're doing, right? And is very good at what they're doing. That relationship is going to then be able to continue leveraging you as a subcontractor, and you are possibly putting yourself in position to be able to be the called on subcontractor that, you know, some of these other prime contractors are using. So let me ask you this. Was your goal to always remain a sub, or did you have your sights, and you speaking from a company perspective, from a company standpoint, did you all have your sights set on eventually becoming a prime contractor? And the reason why I asked that question is because there are some businesses that get certified, they just want to be subs, and they're fine with being subs, right? But then there are other oh my goodness, I just got to okay, there are other businesses that come in and they want to they know that they want to become a prime contractor.
So it's interesting. I think it's each individual business's decision, right? But if we look at, and this is my individual perspective and point of view that I'm sharing with everyone here, so I take full accountability for what's coming out of my mouth. So if we look at the intent of the programs aren't meant for you to stay there. The point is for you to grow and to add capacity to the marketplace and create generational wealth for those that have historically been left behind, right? And you can be very comfortable getting your 3%, 5% that just meets the goal. But you know, you're in it to make money too, right? Yes, I love roads, I want safety, but I have to pay my employees, I have to do their benefits, and at the end of the day, I got to send my kids to college too, right? You make more money as a prime, hands down. And the only way to graduate the program is if you're prime. I can continue to be sub, but what kind of excitement, or how will I attract really great talent that wants to work on bigger and larger projects if I'm always giving them just a sliver of that potential work, right? So my business decision has always been to be prime. It took us a long time. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, we've had this vision for the past 10 plus years that we wanna be prime. We wanna be prime. And we started hitting those prime contracts, quite honestly, in the last 2 years. We had some other ones, but you know, the more recent ones, the robust ones that we've won, it took us a good 3 to 5 years to lay the groundwork, to build the relationships, to get those prime contracts, and to bring those firms that used us as sub consistently. We brought them along to share a piece of that pie because they shared with us for so many years. So we've always had the goal of graduating, 1. 2, the way to graduate is to be prime. So we actively try. We don't win all the time. You can't win all the time, right? But we actively try, and it has been a concerted and a very strategic effort that, you know, is 10 plus years in the making. And in the past, you know, 5 years, really concerted effort. And in the past 3 years, really good successes. And it's all based on the relationships that we've had to nurture and make over those years.
Thank you. That makes sense. I'm sorry, I had to turn my camera off. That makes sense to me. So a follow-up question to that, vendors will look at you, Harvin, and they will think that because you're a large firm, or, you know, we've already identified that you're not quote unquote large, but you're large to a lot of other businesses that might be on this call, that there's an advantage and opportunities come easy for you. Would you agree with that? Why or why not?
Oh, absolutely not. You know, nothing comes easy for the large firms either. They just have more money and resources to pursue what they want. And as I said earlier, they track their projects for 10 years, whereas a firm like mine or many people on the phone, you're reacting. Oh, there's a solicitation out, there's an RFP out, whereas other people have had the advantage and have extra employees, can afford overhead to you know, pursue that work in what seems like such an easy way. But none of it is easy. None of it is easy for you. None of it is easy for them. They just have more people. So I don't think that's, you know, I said this in the beginning, you know, if you are committed and you really are passionate about what you do, your size isn't going to limit your success. Time, budgets, and when you work in the public sector, budget processes, politics, who's elected and not elected is more likely to hinder your growth or your timeline than your size. Because, you know, the best thing that anybody can do is, you know, depending on what anybody on the call is selling, right? Let's say you're a landscaper or a landscape architect. Cook County's buying plan is online. You got to go and see, when do they solicit for these landscaping skills? For the people who win the projects that are doing landscaping, should I give them a call? Maybe they want to buy my pansies, you know, whatever it is that you sell. We sell design services, so we can't even like give you a widget, right? And we don't give you a price, but it's the relationships that you need, even if you sell the widgets or the flowers, to convince somebody to use your flowers and not somebody else's flowers, or my engineers and not somebody else's engineers, right? So it's really, if you have patience and you are persistent, there are so many resources that can be used to get you to where you need to go. Now, none of it is easy. It's not easy, but you already are at an advantage because you have people like Makiba and her staff in contract compliance, in the diversity offices, that will meet with you and say, okay, you know, who buys insurance? Who buys, can you help me? And they'll give you names. And then it's up to you to make those calls. And I'll tell you right now, I still make calls and people don't call me back.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. That's a part of the game. Like literally, that's a part of it. And I think where a lot of people get stumped is with what you just said, you know, they'll get the information, but now they have to make the calls, they have to build those relationships. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't really understand what building relationship looks like in this space, right? They don't understand what that's like. They don't understand what that looks like. And so my commitment to all of this is to really try to bring more education to our vendor community and to our small business community to help them really understand how to build those relationships with those companies by bringing in more companies to have conversations like this. Because I can't tell you how to do that, but the people that are out there in the field can actually, they can probably tell you a little bit better how to do that. So we are, for those who are here, we are working on some stuff. I had a great, bright idea last week. And I think we're going to look at bringing some prime contractors in for a conversation. So be on the lookout for that. But we have just a couple more questions, Harvin. So what advice would you give to a newly certified company or one that is trying to navigate the procurement process without any experience at all?
First of all, I would say, give yourself some credit. You got certified. Okay. And the certification process is a huge labor intensive process. So pat on the back for doing that. Second, it's just the beginning. So sit down and think through what your value proposition is. What is it that you're going to bring to whoever you're selling to, whatever product you're selling, whatever service you're selling? Why, that it's really interesting, right? You go to a lot of places and they say you should have your 30-second pitch, and those aren't always easy. But what they do force you to do is think about, well, why should anybody use me? And, what you need to start doing is making a plan. In order to have a business, you have to have a business plan. Now that you're certified, you have to make a plan as to how you're going to utilize your certification. What services does that agency provide? Are there workshops that I can go to that introduce me to more people? Being certified is one thing, but if nobody knows who you are because you're not out there, then the certification just means you're like on a spreadsheet and somebody can look you up. You need to actively be involved in going out there and meeting people and being part of programs such as this, in-person events now that we're, out of COVID. Being present at those types of, in those type of places is really what's going to give you that next step, that next level, a better understanding of what your individual plan will be and how to leverage your certification. You have to think through that. How do I leverage my certification based on the services that I provide? So, you have to be very methodical and you have to think through it and you have to follow through. And as I said to everyone before, this isn't an overnight thing. This is a year, 2 years. Some people who you see who have overnight success could be because they already had relationships. And it really depends. Did you have the relationships and you got the certification? Or did you do the certification and now you're building relationships? Both are great ways to do it, but they're different. So.
Okay, thank you. That's really, 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 really good information. So Harvin, so this may be kind of an overlap of what we've already been talking about. So if it is, we don't have to be redundant, but I just feel like this is something that we need to kind of hit on really quick. So picture a firm coming to you and asking you, hey, Harvin, I'm sorry, I just got certified with Cook County. What do I do to get contracts? Aside from what you've already said, I mean, you can reiterate some of the things you've already said, but I'm that company coming to you and I'm saying, I'm certified with Cook County now. I just got certified. I'm super excited. What in the world should I do and how should I go about doing that?
So I think I thought about this one and I wrote down a few questions. I would be very excited. Great, awesome, Akiva, you're certified. This is great. You're excited about your business, but let me ask you a question. Does the county that certified you buy what you're selling? Do they buy it? Do you know who the buyer is? Do you know when they buy it? Did you look at the buying plan? Let's look at the buying plan, because sometimes certain RFPs or certain requests for certain purchases only come out once a year. So you need to know what time of year that is, or do they give out 1-year contracts, 6-month contracts? And then the beauty of being certified is, did you go make an appointment over there with the small business office to see what classes they offer, or to ask them, can they help you? Because sometimes it's hard to navigate the website. Who is the buyer for my services? And then you start making a plan. Basically, let's sit down and let's do some research and let's think about who exactly I need to target. And then not only that, but who has the contract that I want? Who's had it? And believe it or not, all that information is public information too. It's a little difficult to find sometimes, but you can find out who holds contracts. You can do searches on the City of Chicago website, on the Cook County website, and you can see who has these contracts. Who's your competition? Have you called them? Maybe they're at a capacity juncture and they could really use your help. You won't know unless you give them a call. So my initial would be, great job. Now let's get down to work. When and how, and did you figure out who buys what you're selling? When, how, where, who, and have you tried to meet them? And then you just keep going from there, because that's how you start to understand the relationships you need to make. You'll meet one person and they'll say, oh, you know what? I'm not really the right person. I didn't understand. Then they'll give you another person. It might take 3 or 4 different people to get you to the right person. But once you hit that right person, and along the way, you'll learn so much information, and you'll have another resource along the way. All those relationships matter, and they begin with your research and your due diligence in getting into and understanding the marketplace you're selling to.
And so, thank you. So I love that answer. I love that answer, because it actually gives people like context to see what their next steps would be. I would also add to that, Harvin, and this is because I've seen something like this in the current role that I'm in, as well as the role that I've been in previously. A lot of business owners don't really have the ability, or haven't really mastered the ability, to communicate their scope of work. And so when someone asks you, let's say that you are starting to build these relationships with these prime contractors, the question is going to come, what are your services? What are your scopes? What do you do? You have to be able to communicate that to them, right? And what I've come across over time is that a lot of business owners struggle with they know what they do, right? You can ask them, like, what do you do? They know what they do, but they cannot communicate it properly in a way that helps them when it comes to contracting opportunities, or when it comes to building those relationships with whomever they want to work with. Or let's just say you get super lucky and you get a prime contractor to reach out to you, because there's so very few people in your industry, and they find you as an MBE or WBE, and they reach out to you and they're asking you these questions, because the question is going to come. The question that's going to follow is, let's have a conversation on what you actually do. You got to be able to say that. You got to be able to effectively communicate that. So I think that also goes hand in hand with, what do I do next, right? Really get a tight handle, a grip on what you actually do in your business. Because prime contractors like yourself are going to be like, well, what's in it for me? Like, how? Because they only want to subcontract you because they feel like you can do something for them, right, as it relates to this contract. So the last question I have is, Harvin, can you please leave our guests with 1 to 3 quick and practical action steps that they can implement today to position themselves to either get consistent sub opportunities, or if we happen to have 1 or 2 companies on here that actually want to go and scale from sub to prime?
So, okay, I've already mentioned a lot of this already, but there's 3 key things that I think you need to do, and then 3 things that I think you need to be. First of all, you got to look at the buying plans. As boring as they may sound, you're selling something, who's buying it? Second, make a plan of action. Sit down and outline what your steps are going to be, whether it's to meet a prime, whether it's to respond to an RFP, whatever it is. And then lastly, pick up the phone and call your resources or people who you know are buying what you're selling. Okay. Nobody's calling you. You call them, because you need something, right? And then I would say, as far as how you need to be, you need to be persistent. You need to have patience along with the persistence, because people are busy. And, even people are busy and not everybody's in the office. So if you leave me a voicemail in my office, I'm not in my office all week. I'm not going to get your voicemail, right? So I wasn't trying not to call you back. I just didn't get the voicemail. So all sorts of things. So be persistent, be patient. And then be present. Go out there and meet people and be present. It is amazing how helpful all of these certification agencies are. They are there to help you if you know what you're asking for. Do you need help putting together your one-page value proposition or writing down your scope of services? Do you need help navigating a website? There's so many resources between all of the public agencies. If you're certified as an MBE or a WBE, the different agencies you might want to do business with provide. They all have different classes that you can take, and being present and learning and meeting people is the best way to build relationships.
Well,
that's what I'd say.
There you have it. So I was trying to drop those, look at the buying plan, become familiar with it, make a plan of action, and then start making phone calls to leverage your resources, which in essence is building relationships. I didn't get to the last ones that you were talking about with the.
It was persistence, being present, and being patient.
Oh, the 3 Ps.
Mm-hmm.
Be persistent, be present, and
be patient.
Be patient.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So this is so awesome, man. I love it. I love it. So let's look. Ern, if you can come off of mute, do you see any questions in there that we can? I think we have a little bit of time, just like a few minutes to ask Harvin any questions. Do you see any questions in there, Ern? If you do, you can go ahead and come off mute and ask those questions.
So to be honest, you both answered all of the questions right on point. I think each time a question popped up, you instantly went into the answer to that question. I probably would say, if you can, just reiterate really quickly, because one of the big questions was, what would you recommend for a person who wants to get started? How do they reach out to, for instance, a construction firm that they're interested in being in that industry? If you can kind of reiterate, what would you recommend for someone to do to get started first?
It really is the phone call. If you know the firm, look them up on the website, look them up and see who is in your space, like who's doing healthcare, who's doing, aviation or whatever, and see who the contact person is, and really just call them. There's no secret. Everything is on Google, as my children tell me. If there's a question
it really
I don't know the answer to, they say, Mom, ask Google. So
she's froze. She froze.
I think we lost her.
She froze on us right in the middle of it.
Yes.
No, she's still there. She is. Harvin, are you back?
I'm still there. Sorry. I was telling everybody to ask Google and call. Just call.
And one last question, someone wanted to know if you are available on LinkedIn, if they wanted to reach out and just kind of pick your brain even further. Excellent.
I'm on LinkedIn. Harvin Singh, my first and last name, and the company name is Singh & Associates. So both the company and I am on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Well, that's it for our questions.
Thank you, Ern. All right, so April Griffin, I'm just looking at hers because it stuck out to me. She said, this just happened to me and I was not prepared to provide the requested documents. I was unfamiliar with completing a letter of intent or so within 3 days. They called again today and I don't know what to do. Are there any resources I can refer to? I will first say I'm very surprised that they left a letter of intent for you to do, because my experience has always been that the prime contractor will send you the documents that you need to complete. And some will give you instructions, some won't, but they'll send it to you. And it's just a pretty simple document in terms of filling it out and signing it. So I'm very surprised that has happened to you. Are there any resources? So in terms of resources, April, that is something that our office is focusing on doing. We do have plans in the future. I know this doesn't help you today because you have to get this done within 3 days, but there are things that we are highlighting, like how to walk some of our vendors and some of our vendors within the community through how to complete certain documents, so on and so forth. I don't know if that's going to be something that is included. So off the top of my head, I can't think of any resources that you can refer to help you do that. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that. Harvin, I don't know, do you have anything to offer here?
No, that's in the contracting space, but you
Yeah.
know, the statement of work would be if they told you what they wanted you to do and you knew the scope of the project
Right.
overall.
Yeah, that
So
should
you
come from
can't have
them.
that.
Yeah.
You can't come up with a statement of work.
Yeah, that's April, that's supposed to come from them. And so that's why that's why as I'm reading this that you've put there, it just seems kind of odd that they're leaving it up to you to finish it off. So let me see. All right, another question. How long did it take for your father to get his first contract as a one-person company before he started bringing on additional people?
It was 3 to 5 years.
There you have it, y'all. 3 to 5 years. It don't happen overnight. It does not happen. It does not happen overnight. Okay, so I'm going through. I don't think I see anything. Ernst says she doesn't see anything else. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you, Harvin, so much. This was an amazing conversation. It was very enlightening, very informative. I think you gave everyone a lot of content and information to kind of ponder on and figure out. I think the biggest takeaways is to make sure you look at that buying plan. I know our team did drop the buying plan in there, as well as some other links that will help you as a vendor or a prospective vendor. The other thing that Harvin said was to make a plan. I know for some people making a plan is kind of, difficult because you don't really know but it's making a plan. The one thing that you want to focus in on when doing that is you want to really get a tight handle on what you actually do. Can you communicate with someone if they ask you right now, what can you do? What do you do? Can you communicate that? So you want to make sure that you have a tight handle on your scope of work and what you can do to provide assistance to whatever type of company that you're trying to do subcontracting work for. Yeah, looks like if I'm already MBE certified with the state, should I also get certified with Cook County and Chicago? Well, that depends on what you do. It depends on what you're wanting to do. They're different agencies. So the one is state, one is local government. So that really depends on if the scope of work that you provide, you foresee yourself doing opportunities with Cook County or the city of Chicago. What I can say is that if you get certified with Cook County or Chicago, you only have to do it one time because there is that form of reciprocity where your certification is acknowledged. Either way, do you want to add anything to that, Harvin?
Nope. I'd just like to thank everyone who's online and wanted to listen, and thank Cook County Compliance for thinking I had something to share. And I like helping other small businesses. So this is great.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you accepting. All right, you all. So that brings us to the end of this. I will not be sending any replays out. However, this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. And I do believe one of our staff members posted the YouTube channel in there. So make sure that you look for the Office of Contract Compliance YouTube channel. That is where, and I may send a follow-up email with the link to the video in the YouTube channel. I'm sorry, a link to the YouTube channel to you all. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. Thank you again to Harvin for sharing your very detailed knowledge and your story and your journey. We wish you much success in everything that you do. And to everyone else, you all have an amazing rest of the day. And our next webinar is going to be on May 1st. We're going to be talking to the Cook County Forest Preserve, and we're going to be talking to Sergio, who is the administrator of compliance there, and he's going to be talking about how to do business with the Cook County Forest Preserve. So if you have not registered for that, we do have just a few more slots there. So you want to go ahead and register for that, and we'll see you on May 1st. Thank you all. Bye.